In 2018, the American spacecraft Liberty landed on the moon's surface. After landing, the ship displays the current U.S. president's election campaign poster. The president sponsored it to promote her re-election campaign. Sanders and James Washington are the two astronauts on board the spacecraft. Sanders' mission is to inspect the moon's surface for chemicals. As he does, he reports the presence of helium-3 on the surface. He then wanders a little further away from the ship and loses contact with mission control. Sanders is surprised to discover a massive helium-3 mine with several people working on it. Astronaut James is near the spaceship, waiting for Sanders. Sanders turns around to summon him to inspect the mine, but a man wearing a Nazi armband sneaks up behind him and shoots him dead. A shocked James tries to flee to his ship, but the person blows it up, leaving him with no way home. He falls to the ground and is surrounded by people wearing Nazi armbands. He is then led somewhere along the well-built roads within the mining base. The camera zooms out to reveal the Nazi base in the shape of a swastika. Renate Richter, a German teacher, teaches a group of school children somewhere on the moon. As they study, we learn that the children were born on the moon and have never been to Earth. Renate teaches the children to speak English, claiming that the language will be useful when they return to Earth to help humanity. As it turns out, when the Nazis were defeated at the end of WWII, some of them fled to the dark side of the moon to avoid being killed. The soldiers established a colony and have been living on the moon's surface in complete secrecy for generations. The Nazi soldiers transport astronaut James to the Nazi commander, Klaus Adler, at the base. Adler introduces James to their leader, Wolfgang Kurzfleisch, also known as Führer among his people. Meanwhile, on Earth, the U.S. president discusses the campaign's failure with her campaign manager. She chose James for the mission because he is African American, and she hopes to increase the number of African American voters in the upcoming election. The president orders her manager to do everything she can to cover up the incident. Back on the moon, Adler summons Renate to come speak to James in English. Adler and Renate appear to be in a relationship. James manages to attack the German soldiers and escapes captivity, but he is stuck in the base because he does not know how to get out. He accidentally knocks out Adler and encounters a surprise Renate near the airlock. Before the woman can say anything, James pulls down a lever, expecting it to open the exit, but it actually opens the airlock. Both he and Renate are dragged by air pressure. They somehow get inside and quickly close the airlock. By then, Adler had caught up to James and was furious. He points his gun at the man and is about to shoot him, but stops when James mentions knowing the U.S. president. Adler wants to extract information from James, so he sends him to Dr. Richter's lab. Adler and Dr. Richter are intrigued by James' cell phone and ask him about it. James responds that it is a phone similar to their computers. Dr. Richter laughs with disbelief. Apparently, the Nazis are still lagging behind in technological advances. Dr. Richter shows James a massive machine that he claims is a computer, despite the fact that his cell phone is far too small to qualify. Dr. Richter suggests cutting James' brain open to examine its size, but Adler wants information from him. Back at the United Nations headquarters, an American UN representative provides a detailed account of the failed lunar mission. The U.S. president's campaign manager is frustrated by the campaign's failure and chastises her employees for presenting her with bad public relations ideas. Adler pays Renate a visit in her room at the moon base to propose marriage, also known as the legal union. He gives her a confirmation certificate that their DNA matches 97% and expresses his desire to have perfect offspring with her. He aspires to be the most powerful person in their base and eventually rule the entire world. The Lunar Nazis project, the battleship Götterdämmerung, has been in development for 40 years. The Führer Wolfgang Kurzfleisch's dream is to complete the battleship. They intend to use the battleship to return to Earth and conquer it. Dr. Richter finally realizes that James's cell phone has 1,000 times the computing power of all their computers. Dr. Richter connects the phone to the battleship and shows the Führer how powerful it is. Everyone is taken aback and impressed when the small cell phone starts the battleship. However, it eventually stops because the phone's battery is depleted. Adler requests permission from the Führer to visit Earth and collect more of these cell phones. He believes that the Earth will attack them someday, and they will need the power of cell phones to defend themselves. Führer claims that no one who has traveled to Earth has ever returned, but Adler is adamant that he will. The following scene depicts James being kept in a room with speakers nearby that constantly blast Nazi propaganda. Renate sneaks inside and introduces herself to him. She inquires about his skin color, having never met a person with dark skin before. She also admits that Dr. Richter is her father. He has been injecting a drug into James's face to make him appear more Aryan. Renat advises James to pretend to be a Nazi, or he inside, and quickly close the airlock. Adler then prepares to leave for the Earth. Before leaving, Dr. Richter presents James, who has been Aryanized. His skin and hair have turned white as a result of the drugs, and he now wears the Nazi uniform. He departs for Earth, accompanied by Adler, Renate, and a guard. Their spaceship lands on someone's farm in New York. The farm's owner shoots one of the guards dead, forcing the other 3 to flee. Adler steals a car from some men and asks James to drive him to the US president. With no other options, James takes them to Vivian, the president's campaign manager. Adler abducts the manager and throws James out of the car because he is no longer useful to him. Adler then asks Vivian where the president is. Renat realizes Adler's mission is to attack the Earth, which contradicts what they had been told. She tries to retaliate, but Adler asks her to repeat what she always does with her students. Renati begins a monologue about their desire to bring peace and prosperity to the world. Vivian is impressed by Renat's oratory abilities and devises a strategy to use her to boost the president's re-election. She then takes the duo to see the president, who approves the plan. They launch a Nazi-style propaganda campaign to re-elect the president, which is successful. Adler and Renate enjoy their time on Earth so much that they forget about their mission. Meanwhile, James has been protesting alone in the streets against the Nazis on the moon. Several days pass, and Renate continues to work for the president. She meets James one day, and the two go to see a Charlie Chaplin film at the theater. When she leaves the theater, she realizes that Nazis were truly horrible people. Meanwhile, Vivian has developed feelings for Adler because she finds him charismatic. Vivian begins making out with Adler as the two enter Adler's office. As they make out, Adler tells her about his plan to invade Earth after killing Führer, who was on the moon. Adler looks up and sees the moon Nazi leader and his men in his office. He has traveled to Earth to discover why Adler is taking so long to retrieve the computers. Knowing Adler's plan, Führer takes the two hostages. Renat rushes into the room and confronts Adler about his mission. She denounces Nazi propaganda, finally realizing that Adler was wrong the entire time. Führer has decided to kill everyone, but Vivian gets her hands on a gun. She kills the Führer and all of his men. Adler realizes Renate has grown to like Earthlings and is about to kill her, claiming she has betrayed the Nazis. But James comes to her rescue, and the two manage to escape. Adler steals Vivian's iPad and declares himself the new Führer. He then transports the former Führer's spacecraft to Earth's orbit, leaving Vivian behind. Adler launches the invasion of Earth with a fleet of space zeppelins and flying saucers. They destroy the Statue of Liberty and eventually the entire city of New York. Renat watches the Nazis destroy the United States and devises a plan. She wants to return to the lunar base and bring the battleship Götterdämmerung to fight the Nazis. The United Nations meets to discuss the attacks. The US president assigns an American Mars exploration spacecraft, the USS GWB, to combat the Nazis. She appoints Vivian as spacecraft commander. However, they are quickly overwhelmed and seek assistance from other nations. Other countries' spaceships come to the rescue. Adler returns to the moon after instructing the ships to fight until the last breath. He's brought Vivian's tablet to activate the battleship Götterdämmerung. After all of the countries have assembled their military forces, they successfully destroy the Nazi spaceships. The spaceships then move towards the moon's base. Adler boarded the battleship and prepared to fight the space coalition. Meanwhile, Renat and James sneak into the battleship. Renat walks towards the bridge looking for Adler, while James goes to see Dr. Richter. The human spacecraft arrives on the moon and attacks everyone inside the Nazi base. Adler panics as the moon begins to fall and instructs his men to start the helium-3 engines. The battleship enters the air. Adler then orders the cannons to be fired, but Earth is on the opposite side of the moon, beyond the firing line. Adler bombs parts of the moon in order to position the Earth in the line of fire. Meanwhile, Renat plays the Nazi anthem, prompting the Nazi officers to salute as she walks towards the Führer. James successfully disconnects Vivian's tablet, while Renat electrocutes Adler before he can fire at Earth. Renat and James narrowly escape as the battleship collides with the moon. The US president congratulates Commander Vivian on their victory, but Vivian inadvertently reveals the presence of large helium-3 tanks on the moon, and all UN representatives from various countries hear it. They all want to claim the tanks as their own, as such a large amount of helium-3 can provide energy for years. The UN members argue, and the fleet of spaceships that were previously working together turns against one another. They start firing missiles at each other's spaceships, causing more chaos. Renat enters her old classroom on the moon's base, where she is greeted by base survivors. She assures them that they can rehabilitate on Earth in peace. She later reunites with Washington, who has regained his complexion. They finally kiss. The film ends with the camera zooming out, revealing the half-broken moon. All right, that's a wrap for today. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. It really helps the channel. Leave a comment with your thoughts and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching and see you next time.